I'm recording now.
It is now
34?
everyone?
Hello.
I can't look this way like this. This orients me. So, first of all, we need to approve the minutes from last meeting. There are minutes here. If you need to look at them again to verify anything, are they all okay? Make a
Yep.
motion to approve.
I motion to approve the meeting.
I
The
second.
minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There are no communications. Presentation, we have here Rick Kearns, who's going to speak a little bit about his experience with the business world here in Cornwall, to give us an idea of the commission, what has been, what he may like to see as a person in this town, what we should accomplish, etc. Just give us an overall.
Awesome. Ready now?
Yes,
Okay.
you can go.
So Rick Kearns, I'm with Northeast Building Supply, AKA Northwest Lumber. Hello. Yes. Some things just never go away.
Yeah.
I've been with the business since 1986. So I've seen a lot of changes throughout the years. One of the biggest changes is in personnel. When we first started, pretty much everybody that worked at the business was from Cornwall or the very close surrounding towns. Now, I'm the only one that lives in Cornwall that works at the business. So for me, the biggest change has been personnel and finding good quality people. I'd love to have more people from Cornwall, employed in the business, but simple fact of the matter is there's just not a huge pool to draw from. From a business standpoint, business is very good. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit easier for me in that we are a destination. People from surrounding towns know about the business and travel to the business, which might be a little bit different than, say, Richard's package store, which is probably more local and or drive-through traffic as opposed to somebody from, say, Sherman coming up to Richards, where they'll come up to purchase materials from the lumberyard. I think one of our challenges has always been the internet as well. I don't know what it is about the connections that we have, but they tend to drop in and out all the time, and we've actually had to put in redundant systems just so that when one connection goes down, another one picks it up. Don't know if there's a fix for that, but it has been an issue in the past. And again, then the last, again, it's a people thing. People have always been a challenge. Right now, we're getting by pretty well, and business is growing, so we're encouraged by that, and hopefully the people that we bring into the town also visit some of the other businesses in town as well. I know the market does well with some of the customers that come in. Probably some visit the package store as well. That's pretty much in a nutshell where we're at.
And would you say your business has grown because of the pandemic and more activity in terms of renovations
Yeah.
and building and all that, that, you know, it's impossible to find the contractor,
Yes.
as most of us know?
Yeah, where the...
So you have benefited from the influx.
Absolutely. When the pandemic first started, we were like panicking, not knowing what was going to happen.
Right.
Essentially thinking everything was going to close down. And for us, the complete opposite happened. The demand for materials has just exploded. I've talked to some real estate people. Obviously, there's been a lot of people moving in that have done a lot of renovations, so that's really helped. And even new construction is way up as well. And price points don't seem to bother a lot of people, which is amazing as well. So, you know, we've actually thrived through the pandemic.
So do you see maybe like housing for younger people that could create a workforce for your business is probably one of the more important things in order to bring them closer, to be living closer by, so they don't have the commute that they
Yeah.
have currently, probably. I think Cornwall has been always attractive for a lot of young people who do seek to work here, to also then live here, or closer by at least.
I know that, so right out of high school, I went into the military, and because I don't want to say I couldn't wait to get out of Cornwall, but in a sense, you know, I wanted to see other parts of the world, and I got to do that, and during those 6 years, gave me time to think, and I'm like, you know, that's not such a bad place to raise a family. And I was fortunate that I was able to come back and make a living and find a place to live here. So, unfortunately, I also think that a lot of young kids, my daughter included, don't necessarily either see or have those opportunities, so they end up leaving. And that's always been a struggle. Yes, sir.
You have a lifetime of experience as a business owner, business manager. What do you think or feel the Economic Development Commission, our goal is to grow Cornwall? What could we do to help you, help the town, you know, either specific to Northeast Lumber or in general?
Again, it's primarily, I would say primarily a pool of people to draw from. You know, most of the people that I see in the lumber business are getting older. There's fewer and fewer young people coming into the business, and that's been a challenge. So we've had to expand our search area quite a distance to try to find good quality people. That's the biggest challenge that I have.
And how do you find your current employees?
Some is word of mouth. I certainly ask current associates if they know of anybody. That's always one of the best ways. We also put out feelers through some of our suppliers that travel around to different locales. And of course, you know, the job search engines, Indeed is a big one. That's our primary platform for working is Indeed.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can think of indigenous to Cornwall that we can help grow the community, the business community? You have 36 years experience.
Yeah. Again, you know, most of what we do is we grow the business through direct advertising to contractors, primarily. Word of mouth has always also been a advertisement for us. Is there anything that the town could do? I can't think of anything in particular. Yeah, there's no one thing that jumps out at
If
us.
something comes to you later,
Yeah.
just let us know.
Sure.
One thing that occurs to me that I've been playing with for the better part of 2 years and some other projects that Rick basically spoke to directly is there's a difficulty of attracting and retaining young people in this area, and there's also the difficulty of running your business without a sufficient internet connection. And there's kind of two sides of the same coin, because the number of opportunities people have to move here if one of their partners can work from home is extensive, but they need a good internet connection to do that. And so I think that one thing that long-term we can look at as the EDC is there's different kinds of infrastructure required for people to move to a place, right? You need to have good schools, you need to have safe communities, good housing, it's affordable jobs, all that stuff. But we don't really think about the internet component of it as much. Like we talk about it on the periphery and other subjects, but I feel like it's not really our place to necessarily decide town internet policy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of our recommendations to the selectmen, it seems like something that is front and center of everyone's mind in town, regardless of whether you work remotely and you do some sort of, advertising marketing situation or whether you have direct sales in town. It's part of your picture. So moving forward, I would like to see that kind of be a general agenda. I think is how we can tie in affordable living with affordable internet.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean, I know Gary has done a lot of work specifically on what I'm not a tech person, so like I know just from personal experience, my husband and I, since COVID, have worked at home, both on Zoom often at the same time. And he loves to call Optimum and yell at them, but I don't know how much good it does. But, I don't know if there's literally infrastructure that is just like not coming to Cornwall.
Well,
You know what I mean? So that's a much bigger issue is my point, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But isn't
right.
that what is being worked on currently?
To an extent, Gordon is being advised by Optimum. Optimum has given the town RFPs. They move forward on siting out areas to put in these boxes that will hold the stuff. And so we are moving in the right direction, but I just feel as the EDC, because we don't have like a formal town internet committee like some towns do who are in charge of monitoring this and reporting back to the select people, even if it isn't our primary prerogative, I think whatever proposals we're trying to do moving forward to help encourage a business climate, we need to make sure that when we send them out, they've got that component.
Sort of coming back around to Rick, while you serve the general community extensively, and I visit the store, mostly the hardware store, quite regularly for things, I would assume that contractors are actually the bulk of the business, or the volume of business that you do. While you need all components for sure, the retail people coming in to get whatever they need, it's important. It's the contractors that are there every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. They're there all the time, and they're long-term customers doing large projects, buying lots of stuff, not just one project. Even if it's, if I'm doing a house, it's my house, it's one sort of one-off, whereas a contractor's doing it, they have several going on. So I'm not sure if this is a question or comment, or just that your customer base, while the general public is also a lot of a specific part of that public. So maybe, I'm not quite sure how that.
So maybe I understand what you're getting at. I think right after the fire, there was a question as to whether or not there would be a lumberyard again. The owners were unsure of what to do, never having to build a lumberyard before. So the initial plan was to create a destination hardware store. Now, in my mind, I'm like, I how do you create a destination hardware store in Cornwall Bridge? I just didn't think that as a standalone operation, it could survive. There's not the traffic, there's not the population. How do you get somebody from Sherman to come to Cornwall for a hardware store? And I think Dusty realized that early on too, and that's why he decided to put the lumberyard on. For me, the only logical direction was to get the lumberyard back up and running for the sake of the hardware store and that portion of the business. So I fully understand the pressures and the struggles to get people into businesses here in Cornwall. A lot of times there's no place to grocery shop, so you're heading to Torrington. There's multiple reasons to go to Torrington, and it seems to me that some people will combine stops when they go to Torrington. So whereas something like if the hardware store were by itself, I just think about mulch. If you're already in Torrington getting your groceries, you're going to Home Depot or Lowe's and you're grabbing those 2 or 3 bags of mulch, and when that happens, the business at the hardware store just would simply just decline. So
I have to but my thought on going to Torrington is, how can I do as few stops as possible?
Yeah.
Not how do I add on stops? It's like, how do I do what I need to do and get out? I think the hardware store, the lumberyard, or the anchor store of Cornwall Bridge, is not the town.
Yeah, no, phenomenally important.
I mean, there's a few, I don't want to, certainly pointing at that, like the ski area, these are unique things. The ski area, the lumberyard, there just aren't a lot of them. And there is not one in every town. There are other things that there is one in every town. So I think the business that you run is a critical component.
And I think the two things that we and Mohawk have in common are that we are both destinations. People from out of town specifically go for that. Now, the question is, how do we harness those people, or how do we create synergy with other businesses for those people that visit Northeast Building Supply or that visit Mohawk? How do we get them to go to some of the other businesses is the big challenge.
Cross-promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, cross-promoting. I think that is also probably what, you may have experienced on the tourism district, that because this is what I had heard from other towns, that there is much more of cross-promoting happening, and that's why we are, trying to promote all the events in Cornwall, regardless of, whether the EDC has come up with them or not, just to make it sort of wholesome, to give people a sense of home. I think what is really important for business is community, just regular community, because that's where you speak, that's where word of mouth happens too, where you refer people from one place to another. Because people sometimes I feel like I'm in the town directory, because people call me and say, hey, where can I find, really the most bizarre kind of, do you have so-and-so's phone number? and because I still have an ancient phone book, I can say, yes, I do. And I think really, if we can all work together to recreate more of a close-knit community, because I think that used to be the glue of everything, of a wholesome, healthy lifestyle. You didn't get rich I don't think that our forefathers were like, you know, wallowing in money, but they were having families here. They were growing up. When I go back into the records of the West Cornwall Village Improvement Association, these people got together every year for Christmas. They put together Christmas tree carols singing. You know, that kind of thing, you know, really is important for a community. And I think that's what we can do, even, you know, as a small business commission, to sort of always re-emphasize on that.
I mean, I think there is an opportunity. There's certainly a lot of baby strollers in the village.
Yeah.
Maybe walk, maybe take a 5 o'clock walk, and you know they're not ready to work at your store, but hopefully there might be a little bit of a swell happening in the long term.
The question is, how do we keep them here?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would just say, like, and I feel very bullish about the direction town's gone in the past couple of years, especially, and I'm excited about this stuff, but you don't need a whole hand to count the number of kids from my CCS class who still live here.
Right.
And that's including kids who are kind of like here a few months, out again, back a few months kind of thing.
Right.
And so it's tough. And that's where if you can offer some sort of, doesn't need to be state of the art or anything, but some sort of tangible difference where this is Cornwall and this is what it can offer and this is what the rest of the area can offer. And I think that a reliable internet connection is really something.
Last thoughts or ideas you want to share with us? Because we've got
Yeah,
more
I
on
think
the
we
agenda.
I think that's
No,
pretty much
good.
it.
Well, thank you so
Thank you
much
for your time.
for your time and effort to get here. All of us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for a bike ride.
Okay,
That's
nice.
all right?
Yeah.
Do
Still have
you
time.
have, is the lumber harbor, are you part of the doing stuff?
Yeah.
This is a tent sale, right? Something.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so
Enjoy your ride.
I guess next up is a report from our fabulous building.
Oh my gosh.
I know, I really like what you're doing, because I think if we've had that in the past, such
Yeah,
accurate
yeah.
accounting, it would have been really helpful.
Thank you. So what I circulated was a summary of what happened last year. We were $62.09 over budget. That was charged to our activity account. I'll explain in a moment. For this fiscal year, we have $6,500. Already spent is $637.50, and $1,300 has been approved and is partially being spent, if not fully, but I'll have more about that next month. So that leaves us with $4,562.50 for the remaining year for all of our projects. Relatedly, we have an activity fund, which were funds raised by the EDC in the past. They are managed within Cornwall town, so we have $697.37 that is forever ours and to use any way the EDC wants. So that's treasury report.
What is the activity fund exactly? Can you explain?
It's funds that were raised at some point in the past and that were raised by and for the EDC.
Okay.
They are ours. They, if we spend none of our budget, that goes away at the end of June next year. If we spend none of the activity fund, it rolls over. It's
Interesting.
forever here. And if we do any fundraising within EDC for EDC, the funds raised will go into our activity fund.
Interesting.
So the activity fund is not taxpayer money. That's, I
Correct.
think, is the key difference.
My understanding of that is correct. I don't know where it came from. I know we have it.
Well, I'm not sure where all of it came from, but one of the revenue sources was putting out a letter to the business community, specifically, but I think to everyone, to raise money, just like a request for putting up money, which we get regularly from just about everybody else, and every nonprofit in town. And businesses not put up 100, 200, 500, whatever the figure was, and I think there were general people in the public that put up money, some amounts of money. And I think that's where a lot of it came from. I'm not sure that's where it all came from. I'm just not positive. Does that sound?
No, that's
sound right?
correct. And I believe that we were supposed to get a letter like that put together, but
It hasn't happened yet.
it has not happened.
But it may still be in somebody's mind to.
Well, I think it's always been in my mind, because I think at some point Gordon had mentioned that such activity fund would be a very helpful tool to do some of these other extracurricular activities, such as, you know, sort of like business gatherings, etc. And so we should in the future think about crafting a letter like that to the business community. Some businesses are doing very well these days, so they might be.
To ask them to
Yeah.
contribute to this activity fund.
One thing we could do to also make it marginally more attractive is, instead of it being like a general request for funding to do good work for Cornwall's business community.
Can I suggest we table this? This is getting into new business.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
Can we talk about it more in new business, you mean?
Well, we can talk about this as a separate topic, but the
Right.
treasury
Okay.
report was just.
Oh, sorry.
It's useful information, but we start going scope creep
Thank
for
you.
now.
I think we should talk about it when the time on the agenda allows.
Somebody needs to keep us on track.
Yeah, no, that's good, thanks, Gary. It's okay.
Next meeting, we can put that on the agenda for the next meeting. To
Okay.
speak about the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
fundraising letter. Okay.
Well, fundraising.
Yes.
Fundraising.
So can I
Yeah,
just ask?
there's a larger topic there.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, can I just ask a related question?
Sure.
Is there a definition of, you know, is it to the EDC's discretion how it uses the activity fund? Or is there any kind of like statement about, okay.
I think the only thing is it's applied to our budget if we don't spend our allocated.
Correct.
That's the only concern.
I'm sorry, say that again?
If we don't spend our annually allocated budget, it's applied to that.
If we
correct?
overspend our budget.
But if we underspend, let's say we come $500 short, that's not deducted.
No, it doesn't go, no.
Oh, okay, I understand.
It's, no.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, next is unfinished business. I think Mayor has some report on the Western Connecticut Tourism Bureau
Yes.
and her status.
I do. I'm only looking at my phone because I texted myself some notes that I had, and I haven't. If it's right, each time I go to one of these board meetings, I'll type it up and it can become part of the official notes, but I haven't had a chance to do it yet. So I did attend on Zoom the board meeting as the new representative from Cornwall for the Western Connecticut Tourism Bureau. They talked a lot about, and so too bad, I was wondering if I should text Neil and see if he wants to come on, but anyway, Neil can learn this through the minutes. They talked a lot about this new approach for the the Connecticut visitor site, which is Visit CT. Is that a CT visit or Visit CT? Visit CT, right, okay. Right, okay. They have, and they also have, so the branding is new. They have a new logo that is very much separate now from like the look of the state of Connecticut. If anyone watches Hulu and you have to watch ads, which we hardly see anymore, I have been watching something on Hulu and I keep seeing the new Visit CT ad. You should find it because it's actually really great, and they are trying to be like younger and edgier, and they're making Connecticut a little less New England quaint and a little more. So anyway, it was a lot about that. Did you have a question, Simon? No. Hello, so if you have a question. Anyway, and there are some specific things that we should talk to engage with Neil about. You know, the site itself has 7 million visitors a year. 60% of the traffic comes through content. They're actually very much looking for content from us, and we should also tag #VisitCT in a lot of our posts. But they would love. I was actually thinking of that aerial view of the bridge. You know. Like they would love any kind of video content in particular that's high quality, you know. So that was something that came to my mind. Like I can explain how to submit these things. Businesses, local businesses should sign up on visitct.com, just in their directory. You don't even, the local doesn't have to have a fee. There's, you know, it's there for every business to sign up. What else? So it was like all of CT Visit. Right, I think they flipped it. Right. That's what, yeah. So it's CT Visit. They, you know, there's Litchfield Hills. I forget how many. Each division has its own sort of distinction on the website. We're part of Litchfield Hills. Anyway, so I think what I got from it was, first of all, that they are really pushing this new, you know, messaging about visiting Connecticut, and that we, as the town of Cornwall, can definitely tap into that a little bit more than I think we have done in the past, although maybe we have done some things in the past, I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, that's where I do a lot of my promoting for my events.
Great.
Because I'm a tourism partner with them. My business, because it's a gallery space, counts as a venue. So I have that, the market, and my
Nice.
retail business there. And every time I have something happening, I just post that on it. And it then brings people to the area. Often I try to tag things onto it or lead people to the overall, like the Explore Cornwall CT site, so that when they then go to that, they get to visit other aspects of our town and get more curious and get lost. But I think it's a really useful site, and I encourage everyone to just look at it, and it's mesmerizing what is out there.
And it's all new. I mean, I'm sure it's all new, and it really is an impressive site. It's awesome.
I was just going to say, it sounds like what you're describing, there's a twofold opportunity for us. On the one hand, we can signal boost Cornwall's profile in relation to the other towns in the region, but then we could also send out a mailing, or maybe a couple, to the people all in the Cornwall business community who we have on our list and say, hey guys, if you haven't done this, like, and you could maybe type up a little thing that says, this is generally like what I do month to month to keep people active and learning on that. Yeah, exactly.
I think I had done that in the past when initially this site was built, because Connecticut had completely fallen off the cliff with tourism for quite some time. And when that came back and was reestablished, the site, I had sort of broadcast that to as many people as possible and alerted them, but you know, that's a while ago.
It sounds like maybe just with the update, it's good to re-up on that message and get it back out.
Maybe that could be part of this. Is it on the agenda tonight to get a gathering with the local businesses? Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
It could be part of that to help educate.
And that could be some sort of thing where, like, we're going to do something specific we want the community's help with, instead of just generally like, hey, we love your support and ideas. Just a specific call to action.
Right. Thanks.
I think that's it. There is no Gordon, there is no Janet. On to the next one. Support of local business initiative. So we've connected, Arne is going to collaborate with Rocco on updating business listings on the Cornwall.org website.
Yep.
And that should really, in order to make it more comprehensive, get some of the people that are no longer alive off of it. And those who've been added, some businesses onto it. And I think we need to also research, perhaps, what new businesses there might be hidden in the backwoods. I think
Absolutely.
Town Hall, I think the grant list is a good source for that.
I'm going to meet with him tomorrow evening, and my plan was to figure out what his general process is, and then take the grant list and cross-reference and see if we are actually pulling. Because right now, we have 137 businesses listed for all different varieties on the directory, but we're using a plugin as well. It's like a third-party service to categorize and source them. So I don't know if we need to just make people more aware of how to input their information onto there, or if we're missing like somewhere else, but we'll report back next week.
Right.
Okay. Next up? Yeah.
Where's my friend Neil? I need him now.
I know.
Should I text him? Oh, that's okay. I was gonna say if he wanted to join, but maybe it's too late anyway. Yeah, I mean, we have 17, I would have to go on the site myself. I think it's 17 or 18 activities listed for Cornwall Day. Most businesses hopefully have received promotional materials. You know, please do take these if anyone else wants to take them around. I actually need to hit the west, anything at the Cornwall Bridge Post Office. Actually, can you do that?
Yeah.
You took a bunch? Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay. Here, maybe we can do more. Might as well, but it's only a few days away, so we should put it. So hopefully people, you know, are understanding that, or who are paying attention on this and posts and everything, that to really get the detailed information, you do have to visit our website. And there's a header there that Neil added, so you see it right away, and you can click it to see the list of businesses. You know, we kept it a simple, we weren't going to publish like a big schedule of events or anything like that, so it's just a flyer that shows the general listing of things that are happening. It is, you know, kind of getting tweaked all the time as things change, but there's a really nice, you know, from lots of art in West Cornwall, to wine tasting and lemonade at the bank and a tent sale.
Wine tasting, are you doing that throughout the whole day so that I can send people down to?
Oh, yeah.
They're not maybe
Not in the morning.
Yeah.
11 o'clock. Just checking.
Probably 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
I'll say, okay, I can have that.
Yeah, I think that's good to think. When people sort of fall into a lull, the midday lull, you know, send them down south.
I think one of the things that is always worrisome is that the one thing you have no control over, which is the weather.
Yeah.
And the weather's supposed to be quite nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Not too warm,
Yeah.
Not too, yeah.
not rainy,
Yeah.
pretty nice.
Yeah.
Get granola at Cornwall Inn and then have a wine tasting. I think that sounds like a good order of events.
It'll happen.
Maybe some sustenance from Susie to get you.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
It's a wine tasting, not a wine drinking.
Yeah.
No, they buy.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then they're on their own.
Good.
I guess that is that. And so I think Simon had put a question here whether we would want to have this happening again next time in person, or should we?
Before we get to that, I have an update on Wi-Fi.
Oh,
Somehow it wasn't.
Oh,
Okay.
didn't get on there. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Cornwall Village Wi-Fi is being installed as we talk. It'll take a little longer. I'll have more news next month. Richard is still reaching out to Cornwall Village Improvement Group to see about supplementary funding for this. And then the next is how we go about this for Cornwall Bridge.
Yeah.
The very high 30,000 foot view is that's going to be a much, much more expensive endeavor than what has happened in West Cornwall or Cornwall Village. And that might be something that's a target for a fundraising campaign.
I was going to say that might be a good idea, because I think it is really, I think West Cornwall is pretty, I get pretty steady signals. I mean, occasional running transactions is a little funny, but I don't think it's as detrimental as what I hear from Mayor or from Rick, that things weave in and out. I think, and Cornwall.
Rick was talking about his own internal within Northeast Lumber, not the public.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But still, isn't it all part of the same infrastructure? I mean, is
Well,
that part of
in
the
a way,
problem?
I mean, how could that be, you know, even be separated? I mean, that's what I always find really phenomenal. So, you know, you get these letters that offer you
high-speed internet and you know your neighbor is sort of like losing it halfway through. How is that possible? So I pay another $100 and
So I'm 120% on the public Wi-Fi train, and I think that's what we need right now. But what we're basically running into at the end of the day, as I understand it, and I'm not an engineer, but the coax cables that we currently use to transmit all of our data for internet have a maximum capacity, period, and they're also towards the end of their life expectancy, so that capacity is substantially reduced. And especially if you have a time where a bunch of people are in town, they're trying to use their cell phones, they're trying to buy things at the store simultaneously, you have a data demand that if people are also at home working at that time, there is just physically not enough bandwidth, and so things start getting dropped. The long-term solution that we have to have is a fiber network. Now, that is something that hopefully our service providers are going to deliver on as they promised, and we won't have to figure something out. But if there's a situation where Optimum does not deliver on their promises, which would not be the most foreign concept in the world, I just want us to be prepared to look long-term at what we need to do as a committee to inform the town and set them up for successful.
One question for you, Gary. You said something, just to make sure I got this. You said something about the need for supplemental funds for Cornwall Village?
Right, we've approved
No.
the funding for Cornwall Village.
Right.
We're looking at an auxiliary source to support that endeavor, the Cornwall Village Improvement Group.
Okay. Just,
That
is
was-
that, you meaning ongoing? There
No,
needs to be
there's
support of
going
it?
to be no ongoing cost because
Oh,
we're leveraging the library system, so there is no annual fee for this. If we do something in Cornwall Bridge, it's a different ballgame.
okay.
But if the Cornwall Village Improvement Group is interested in helping the town through supporting the Wi-Fi in Cornwall Village,
I see.
that will free up funds from within the EDC to use in other places.
Because it will benefit the residents as well. Is that what-
Yes.
Okay, okay.
It'll
I just want to make
benefit
sure I
Cornwall
understood
Village.
that right, and also, okay. Gotcha.
Well,
And
I
Richard,
think
you're reaching out
I
to.
think the town, I'm not sure it'll benefit residents per se. I think it's benefiting the village of Cornwall in general, and the events that take place on the green,
I see.
and the events that are just people in town, people visiting or walking up and down.
In that
the
way
street.
it benefits, but not the direct.
No.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, okay, I got it.
And that's not what the Wi-Fi is being proposed to do to begin with, I don't believe.
No, it's just for the town green environments.
And for activities in town green environment. And-
Right.
And is the issue in Cornwall Bridge in that, is that it's a more complex situation?
Yes.
Does it spread out larger, or is that?
It's more complex. The physical logistics are part of it, but it's generally a more complex system, process. It's a more complex endeavor. The library already had a split, so we didn't have to put any protections. If we do that in Cornwall Bridge, we would need to put in protections for the package store, for the country market, so those are costly, and their annual running costs to them. That's not what we're having here.
Because we're using the Connecticut Education Networks, right, their infrastructure, that supports the
Library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's recent.
And what about the local in West Cornwall?
Theirs is antennas within that building, which reaches a certain radius. It does not always cover the entire West Cornwall Business District. So there's another discussion about that to have as well.
And that's also in partnership with the library, correct? That's the Hughes Memorial Library?
I'm not sure.
Support that.
It's in partnership with Hughes Library.
Yes.
So because of the libraries, they're on a different kind of,
Yeah, and again, I'm not far from an expert in this, but just my very lay understanding is that when you have a library, both the agreements with the service providers and the funding available from the state and defense becomes very different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right.
does that
That's it.
conclude
Hmm?
our meeting? And
Fine.
then the thought about doing it next time again in person, or should we
Oh.
resume, going back to Zoom? What do you think, Simon?
It's a lot easier if you're all together. Being any man on Zoom is pretty lonely, I can tell you.
Oh.
I mean, in some ways, people have gotten so used to Zoom, but if, I certainly enjoy the face-to-face as long as it doesn't like make anyone have more of a struggle. You know what I mean? Some people like to be home, but why don't we try it again? And if it works again, we can keep doing it.
Okay.
Does that need a vote? No.
No.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe what I should do is for the next meeting, schedule it so that there could be a Zoom link, just in case, half of us is inflicted with COVID, so that it is easier to have officially a Zoom meeting.
You could have a hybrid meeting, you just
Yeah,
have to figure out how.
But for this particular meeting, because it was set up as an in-person meeting, which
I
only
see.
required 24 hours of notice to town hall, I couldn't tag that on the Zoom meeting, so I only got.
I see. Okay. So yeah, maybe we could at least
Yeah.
have that in case.
I think we're stronger
want
as
that
a full
option.
team, so if we can have a hybrid for whoever is out of town,
Yeah.
that probably is helpful, but I think that the in-person meetings definitely help us tangibly.
Yeah.
I think hybrid meetings though still are, they haven't been figured out too well yet. I
No,
mean,
we're trying to figure it
This is
out.
okay, but it's not really,
If 5 people were in person and 5 people were on Zoom, it's
it's
logistically going to be a nightmare.
Right, that's what I'm
That's
saying,
very
so
well.
I don't think that'll work at all.
No.
I mean, ultimately, you can cancel the meeting if somehow enough people can't do whatever needs to be done.
You have to have a video camera to video the live meeting
Right.
and put it on the Zoom too. So that's the whole trick.
Because we have to be recorded. So if we're
No.
going to have anyone in person, we have to have an in-person recording, and then if we add Zoom.
Well,
we have to-
that's the question. Does the
Recorded
meeting
by-
need to be
who says it has
recorded?
to be recorded?
The meeting
That's
needs to
not
have
all, I
minutes.
believe.
Yeah, the Zooms need to be recorded, but maybe the meetings themselves, going back pre-COVID, were the meetings always recorded in person?
No.
No,
No,
Yeah.
the EDC
Okay.
meetings.
But I
were-
think especially for the EDC meetings, I think it is helpful for the public that we reestablish kind of a trust with the public, because there's been really a lot of stuff that went on with EDC meetings where people got very upset at how things were run, and I think when people have the opportunity to watch a meeting, they get better answers, and I think that's really important.
So maybe this goes on the agenda to figure out how we want to meet moving forward to the next meeting.
I don't think the town of Cornwall has figured out a hybrid kind of meeting.
I don't think any town in Litchfield County has.
Right.
That's one.
I mean, I think we,
So,
That's,
maybe we have to offer it hybrid, but hope that most people come. I mean, I do think, I know Neil is an honorary member, not a voting member anyway, but he's usually in Philadelphia, so that's far away.
He's highly productive, and I would.
Yeah, so I think hybrid would be nice for that reason.
I don't think hybrid's possible. is what
Well,
I'm
I
saying.
think if we say it's
I
residents of
think-
Cornwall,
Okay.
I think we should table that now.
Yeah.
Either-
It is possible, but it does cost money. You have to get the
Okay.
equipment.
Okay.
So at this point, yes to in-person?
Nope.
Next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure,
great,
yeah.
Okay. So then I make a motion to adjourn this lovely meeting.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Goodbye.
Thank you, Simon.
And that's it.
Thank you all. That's
Feel better.
Good.
Feel better.
Wishing you well.
good health, Simon.
That was a light
All right.
one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye, thanks.
thanks.
Well, whatever it does.